But today we're going to be going over some of the Black Friday pieces for making sure that your listings are ready, and then some tips for people who are going to maybe do RA on this as well. So whether you're live or catching the recording, then we're going to be covering both of those things. So whether you're primarily wholesale or you're actually going out and shopping, we're going to be covering both. And then at the end, you're also welcome to ask any questions. And if you have something in particular that you wanted to ask about during it, go ahead and put it into the chat as well. So the first thing in making sure that you're ready, as from this point on, it's really about shipping. Making sure that your stuff is at Amazon is going to be vital. So one of the pitfalls that I see people do is they get so caught up in the shopping that they put off their shipping. When it comes to if you're going out to shop, you need your stuff to either be the first stuff that's checked in or the last stuff that is standing. So you want to get those items shipped as much as possible. So if it came down to you having a bunch of stuff ready to ship on Monday or shopping all the way through Sunday and not having some of those items ready to ship till Wednesday or Thursday, I'd rather have you stop shopping a day before, unless you're buying things that are going to sell outside of Christmas. As we're buying for right now, there can be some really great deals that are available in the retail space that aren't for items that are going to be just Christmas items. There's a lot of items that sell really, really well in January, and you might start wanting to think about shifting your focus, whether it's wholesale or RA or OA or whatever, to items that are going to sell well in Q1 that will have a slight seasonal lift, but that will also have a lift in January and February. So somebody might get a set of skis for Christmas, or they might get exercise equipment for Christmas, but they also are going to be good for New Year's resolutions. A spice set that is a giftable package that might go well for Christmas, but then also a lot of people have New Year's resolutions around eating more at home and eating healthier. So you can start to look, and when you're looking to purchase, don't just focus on toys. There's a lot of things that get a seasonal boost for Q4 that can keep you away from everybody else. If your warehouse assignment is one where you notice that it's already really lagging, then you might want to say, I'm going to stop those things that are going to sell primarily just for Christmas way earlier. So if you're selling Christmas trees and Christmas wreaths, so let's say you're selling, the plastic Christmas trees and stuff, the artificial ones, then what I would say is that you need to stop shipping a lot sooner than maybe somebody who's doing primarily shoes and clothing that will sell all the way through Christmas. They'll be great Christmas gifts, but also sell well in January as well. So your product mix and your warehouse distribution, that's going to impact, people every year ask, well, how late can I send? Can I keep sending things in? And in a lot of groups, people will say, just keep sending it in, keep sending it in. For some categories and product mixes, that's absolutely true. And you can have just as strong of a January as you do a December. If you're doing primarily toys, the toy market starts to collapse right after Christmas because people just bought toys for everybody. And, as somebody with a January birthday, I will tell you that a lot of kids that have birthdays in early January, they get birthday and a Christmas present kind of put together, because people have spent all their money in December. So think about your product mix and will it sell afterwards? Is there going to be a lot of clearance on these particular items? So even if it's something that would sell well in other time periods, if there's a huge amount of clearance, and this is even if you're buying wholesale, that if there's a lot of those items that are going to be on clearance, the week after Christmas, then that's going to affect the supply and demand, and that's going to mess up the prices. So even if you're buying items, if you're primarily wholesale, you need to think about, where these items that I have wholesale, where are they sold in store? And are those stores going to be clearing out that merchandise at the end of Christmas to make way for new items? So is anything that's going to be on that seasonal aisle, you need to be really careful about, making sure that you get rid of your inventory, that it's sold through before those resets happen. And we want to say, we say list before you shop, because, you want to make sure you get as much time to turn that inventory as you can. And if you don't get that inventory in, then we see people end up holding the bag sometimes on those items. So again, you're going to look at your inventory and your product mix, think about things that are going to sell in Q1, and, can you send certain things in later? So, a big part too of, getting the shipment in over the next couple weeks is kind of triaging, looking at the things, where are the things that I need to send in stock right away so that I can stay in stock, and what are some of the things that, I can send later. So when we used to do big buys, whether, we had a whole bunch of wholesale coming in, we would look at the things that are the most profitable, that are the easiest to prep, that we could get sent in very quickly. And, we also probably would sometimes prioritize, whatever we thought would sell out soonest, because we wanted to make sure we stayed in stock. But, there are some things that you might say, well, I'm going to hold this because it will sell well after Christmas, after this initial burst of people that bought something on clearance have gone away. So let's say you were buying a popular game for kids, and you saw that Walmart, or Target, is, they have this one SKU out of this entire line, and that they're going to do a Black Friday special on that one game. Then what I would say is that you might hold your wholesale back, or you might not send in the items that you purchased RA during that Black Friday sale. Wait for the people who bought during that Black Friday sale to sell out, and then send it in, so you're not paying the storage fees while you wait for other people and you're having to be super price competitive on that. So, think about, what things can I send, what things really need to be sent in first, and try to keep yourself from getting backed up on the shipping side of it. If you have been using freight primarily for the last couple months, then one of the things that you might consider is switching back to doing partnered shipping. And by that I mean, if you were using, you were scheduling freight, you were shipping on pallets, you might consider using UPS or FedEx for the next couple weeks to make sure that you get in. In previous years we've said, try to get premium placement. If you can, that is great. There seems to be a huge lag this time of year in getting that in. So if you aren't already in premium placement, the likelihood of you getting in before Q4 is low. So just make sure you set your expectations accordingly. But that doesn't mean it's not worth trying. And then, the other thing is you can do merchant fulfilled and seller fulfilled prime. Seller fulfilled prime is something that you have to audition for. But, with merchant fulfilled, even if you aren't approved to merchant fulfill toys for this last couple weeks, you can start to look at other things that are outside of the toy category that will sell well, and there's a lot of great giftable items. Think about what you're buying for your cousins, for your uncles, for your brothers and sisters, and you can look at merchant fulfilling those items as well. So the other thing is we really need to make sure that all of our inventory that we have at Amazon is available for sale. So that means weekly, and if you're a large volume seller that's maybe past the million, maybe even past the $500,000 mark, you might even want to check this twice weekly, is making sure that none of your inventory has gone into stranded or suppressed inventory. So, this can happen if a brand gets gated. It can happen with listing errors. If somebody deletes their original listing and maybe it takes away the images. So then what happens is Amazon says there's not enough information here for people to buy. So we're going to suppress that information. We're going to suppress that listing. So make sure you're watching your inventory for those listing errors, for stranded and suppressed inventory. There's information on how to fix both of those, I believe, in the Academy, in the manual, the Unstoppable manual. So make sure you're watching that, because we've seen people that, they had seasonal items, they didn't realize that there was a listing error, and, they had 50 of something and they didn't realize until afterwards when they said, why didn't this sell? That there was, some sort of listing error that was making it so that wasn't selling. So every week between now and Christmas, I recommend that you go in there and just, even if you're just checking for listing errors, it might be just, if you don't have any, it will take you maybe 3 minutes. If you do have some, it could be the difference between you being able to get these items sold at a high profit or not. So, really highly recommend that you do that weekly or bi-week or twice weekly. For any inventory that is stale, if it's anything that's likely going to sell during Christmas, then what I want you to look at is try to get it moved during Christmas. So if you go to the detail sales and traffic by child report, then you can actually see, is it getting traffic or is it just not converting the traffic? And there's some reports now that even will tell you, like, is it low conversion or is it low traffic? So what you would do is, if it's not converting, and this is true for wholesale, you want to use this time period when a lot of things are moving to get rid of any dogs that you might have that you purchased earlier in the year. So if it's a low conversion, it's not converting that traffic, then you might do a price dump. But before you do that, I would look at, can you enhance the listing? Now, the question is, should I spend time doing that? And it's going to depend on how much money that inventory makes up. So, and there's not a fixed amount, because, for a multi-million-dollar seller, you might need to have, $5,000 or $6,000 for it to be worth you taking the time to enhance the listing. However, if you're a smaller seller, then even, having 5 or 10 of a unit, it might be worth you enhancing the listing, fixing the title or the bullets or the images, so that you can make sure that you sell through it, so you can get that money back into your business. If the item is selling but it's not getting enough traffic to really generate the sales that you want, then that's when we would look at, you can use a clippable coupon is a great place to try to increase some traffic, sponsored products, running some advertising, and then sometimes you can do a temporary price reduction. Remember that Amazon's search algorithm, the way that it determines whether, to put things at the bottom or the top of search, is highly reliant on you getting sales for that product. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. If your product hasn't had enough traffic to get enough sales, will continue to not get traffic, because Amazon's going to say this isn't something that is going to sell very often for this keyword. So the more traffic you can drive to a converting listing, the better it can be. But if you have a really bad listing where the images are bad, the title is bad, driving more traffic might not fix it. And the other thing you need to think about, if you've been doing private label and something's not converting, especially if it's something that there's a lot of different kinds of the same thing. So if you had a garlic press, your item might have high traffic but not convert, and it might have nothing to do with your listing, but that there's other garlic presses that are much less expensive or that have better listings, more reviews, those kinds of things. So those are the things that you want to really be looking at when we're looking at stale inventory. Now, if you have inventory that you think is just, there's no way it's going to sell, maybe it got brand gated, then don't miss the opportunity to sell things locally. A lot of people are now looking on these apps. Here's a couple that work really, really good, really, really well for people who are trying to sell local stock. If you have items that are still at Amazon that that they're probably not going to sell through Christmas, you can kind of use that hyper buying syndrome that we see during Q4. There's a website, it's either BoxFox or FoxBox, and it's a place where you can sell liquidation overstock. eBay, you can look at House, Poshmark, those different kinds of marketplaces to cross-sell it, to see if you can sell it other places. And then you can also look at selling them locally here. The thing that I will caution you on is you really need to think about, when is it better for you to just cut your losses and donate it versus spending the time and the money to move things around, to list it on other marketplaces. So I want you to really look at, let's say somebody has some stale inventory, and let's say that it's grocery. It's not, by the time your margins are so small in grocery already for the most part, it's not going to make sense to call something back and then to sell it on OfferUp. But by the time you do that, you're only going to make a couple dollars. Or, cross-selling it on eBay, by the time you pay the multi-channel fulfillment fees and eBay's fees, it's not going to be a lot of money in your pocket. However, if you got a Nike shoe and you got it for pennies on the dollar, and you know that you can list it on eBay and you might sell it for less, but you're going to be able to actually get it sold, maybe for some reason it's gated, then that might be an option if it's a $70 or $100 shoe, because that could be a $30 difference. Now, you have to look at how much do you make per hour? How much are you worth per hour? So if you know that you can consistently source and profit $50 per hour, and you're going to sell these other items on eBay, and that's going to keep you from shopping and being able to purchase things that you might be able to, profit $500 or $600, then it's actually a waste of your time to try to save $50 or $100 trying to cross-sell a couple items on eBay. So when it comes to planning these last couple months, it's not just about managing your inventory and managing your price or managing how much you're buying. it's managing how you spend your time and where are you going to focus that time, because you have all of these items that we're going to talk about here, but you have to really make sure that you're monitoring your inventory, you're monitoring the way that you're purchasing inventory, because that's going to be what really sets you up to be able to have as much profit as possible. So really be looking at where are you spending your time and what's going to get you the biggest yield for your time investment. Um, People ask us, should they run sponsored products on their stale inventory? And we really don't recommend it unless it's something that's going to be replenishable. So it's something that you're buying wholesale or even RA, but you're buying it over and over again at full price. Or it makes up a large percentage of your inventory. Let's say you went, you had a really great deal and you bought something and maybe you spent $10,000 on a couple of lines of inventory. Now, if you're thinking about that, that's not something I would recommend to do because it can get you in a lot of trouble. But if you've already done that, then it might make sense to run sponsored products. But again, you have to think about, if I run these sponsored products, is my margin already so low that by the time I run these ads, then I might just be breaking even? Because in that case, it might be better for you to call back the inventory and sell it locally. It might be better just to do a price reduction, or it might be better to just say, you know what, I'm going to be out a couple $1,000s, but I learned not to do that again, and I'm going to focus on the inventory that is bringing me in the money that I need. So you can now target by product on Amazon. So let's say I am selling Penzi spices. I can now run ads specifically on Lowry spices. So you have new targeting options. If you weren't aware of them, you should get in there and look at those. But again, I would say that people who are doing wholesale, you guys have more time to play with sponsored products this time of year than somebody who's going to be really reliant on RA, because you're going to be sending in until, for the next couple weeks. We also get a lot of questions about repricing this time of year. How aggressively you want to reprice is going to depend on the supply and demand for the item. So scarcity is what makes an item more valuable. So not everything goes up in price. So if you watch for Black Friday sales on things that you already, so one of the things to look for is if you see Black Friday sales on things that you already have in inventory. So there was one year that there was an item that we carried wholesale that what was on like page 36 of a Walmart Black Friday special. So, and it was, significantly less than what we bought it at wholesale cost. So we went and bought as many of those as we could because we knew that we would be able to sell them. Now, after that Black Friday sale, since a lot of people saw that and it was a really great deal, we knew that the price would tank, and so our velocity would slow on those items. So we held those items locally until we saw that a lot of the people from the Black Friday sales, they had gotten impatient and they had lowered the price and they had sold out. Once the price started to rebound, that's when we sent those items in. So don't just think about Q4 sales, think about evergreen products as well. So not all prices go up. So when we think about supply and demand and how it affects prices on Amazon, when Frozen came out, costumes that were normally $44 were selling, 8 times or more their retail value. Some of them were selling $300, $400. The reason, and then so the next year when Star Wars, when the reboot of Star Wars, the next Star Wars movie was coming out, everybody was like Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. There were Star Wars Bolo lists and Star Wars this, Star Wars that, because everybody thought that we'd have the same phenomenon for the new Star Wars movie, which had a much bigger fan base. But most of the items, there were some exceptions, but most items in the Star Wars license deals that, the products that were out there didn't have anywhere close to that multiplier, because the thing why Frozen sold for so much, and if you miss the Frozen thing, you can hear about it from more seasoned sellers. But the reason that those Frozen items or Tickle Me Elmo or all of these things they sell for so much around Q4 is because there's an unexpected demand for the product. They had, Disney had not had an animated princess movie that had been this popular in years and years. The closest that they had was Rapunzel, and that was 5 years plus ago, and they hadn't really had something really amazing since we're talking like Mulan, Pocahontas, and even then none of them were really as big as Frozen. So you want to, the reason that those items sold for so much when Star Wars items didn't is because there was so much anticipated demand for Star Wars. The supply was meeting that demand. So as you're looking for things that are going to sell for big multipliers, if that's what you're doing, then you want to think about, where is it that there's unexpected supply, unexpected demand that the supply is not going to meet. So, and the other thing to look for on that, so let's say something has been, selling for $60 when it, retails for $20, and it's been doing that the entire Q4 season. If there's a Black Friday special for that item and, it's available for $20 or, instead of $20 it's available for $10, you can expect that price to go down after that Black Friday. People who are shopping Black Friday get that inventory in. So prices, even on popular items, can go down in Q4. So you want to be watching the market and be looking for, where's the best opportunity to sell. If things are getting harder and harder to restock or they're harder and harder to find, those are the items to price higher, knowing that the price that you will likely be able to command a larger price closer to Christmas. And then items that, they're popular, but there's people, you're still able to find those items. Those you might want to more get in and get out. So when you're looking at repricers, even if you don't normally have a repricer, you might want to have one for Q4. Sometimes it's worth doing it for just this period. Now, as you're setting up a repricer, don't set it up for all of your SKUs at once. Set it up for 2 or 3 SKUs and test your rules to make sure that it's working the way that you think that it's going to work before you apply it to everything, because you can't take those things back. Make sure that, because storage fees are even more than they have been in the past, then it can make scarce items that were hard to find, they could go up even higher in price because people were afraid to buy too many. But things that there was an oversupply for, then those things are going to reduce in price faster and harder, and they're going to stay down longer because people, are going to be anxious to get rid of that inventory before they get hit with those storage fees. So here's some ways to identify if a market is softening, and this is something that you want to use all year round. So when you're looking at, should I buy more? Should I start to pull out of a certain product? You want to look at, is there an increasing number of sellers, especially if you see new sellers coming in with a lot of quantity, so they're kind of going all in. You're starting to see that the price is starting to move, maybe back up and down, but it kind of mostly in the down area. That, especially when you see that volatility in the pricing with an increased number of sellers, that means that this product has started to reach a new point in its product life cycle where the likelihood is that that price will go down unless the manufacturer is doing something to control that supply. This is true all year round, but especially for around this time of year. If there's large quantities available in stores or that are highlighted in sales, then, and people are going to, there's certain large national chains that are using this as a loss leader to get people into their stores, then that is going to be a softening market. So you want to think about things like Zuzu pets and fidget spinners. Every year, there are things that are popular for just a season. Well, people are starting to find this product and, they haven't been able to get enough in because there's more people interested in it than the items are available. It will sell at high velocity at high margins. This is a great time to get into products. I love to do this. This is why I like to work with smaller brands, is because I have more of a chance of hitting this kind of window. Once we see that the number of sellers is increasing, pricing is starting to soften a little bit, then we stop reordering, we stop restocking, and we sell through what we have, because we know that unless we're working with the manufacturer to control the number of sellers on that listing, we know that with increased supply, then the price will go down. So there's a couple ways to extend your selling season for Q4. The one that I think people miss the most is product mix. By having really good products that sell in different seasons, you can have a Christmas every couple of months. Now it's not going to be necessarily the same as your December, but you can have big peaks in your season, in your selling, one for, beginning of the year New Year resolutions, eating healthy. You can have spring sporting goods, spring clothing. You can have summer pool items. And so if you can find things that you're carrying, a base of items that you're carrying all the time as an evergreen product, and then you're layering on top of that different seasonalities that you're coming in and out of stock on during the appropriate times of the year, then that can really give you a really nice bump in those sales curves and can help you accelerate faster so that the next Q4 you have more available cash. So make sure you're checking, the other things are you can merchant fulfill items. Make sure you check to make sure you're eligible to do that. And, before you put 50 things available on merchant fulfill, put something that even is at break even and ship, 10 items. Make sure you're really clear on how much time it's going to take you to get those. And then if you're in California, I always, we're in Arizona, so I will look at how much it's going to cost me to ship to Maine, and then I will base my price off of shipping it to Maine, which is very far from Arizona. Shipping is very expensive, so if you haven't done your own merchant fulfilling shipments in a long time, then I highly recommend that you really do some research before you go crazy on buying things that you're going to ship from your location. And always have your supplies ahead of time. We would actually look for items that fit in certain boxes. So we would say, this Christmas we're going to be merchant fulfilling items, but we're only going to be carrying items that fit in this box, this box, and this box. And it looks silly, but I would carry all 3 boxes into the stores with me. And I would look for items that would fit into those boxes that were profitable because I only wanted to carry a certain number of boxes. So, you can just focus on games, you can just focus on small things, Christmas stocking stuffer kind of things. By having those boxes ahead of time, it's going to help you get those items shipped out in deadline. And you never list anything merchant fulfilled that you don't have in stock on hand. So don't think that you can just go out and buy it, when it sells, because that isn't always the case. If you have items, so we recommend that you have like maybe 5 to 10 different items that you're selling, and you could sell a lot of them. If you weigh them ahead of time with the packing tape, the packing slip, all of that stuff, then make a list of the weights, then you can basically print out your packing slips and your labels all at the same time, and then just double check them before shipping. I know many of you have heard me say it many times, but if you want to give yourself a raise as an entrepreneur, the best way to do that is to be more efficient. So make sure you're having a chance to go through and look at those items. And for people who are doing RA, I know that there's a couple people that are selling spreadsheets of these Black Friday flyers done for you. A word of caution: anytime the bar lowers, that means more competition. So if I personally was doing RA out in stores, I would be looking at what stores are included on those, and I would nix any of those stores from my personal shopping route. And I would look for local flyers that aren't going to get that same attention. You don't want anything that is a doorbuster or that people are really excited for, that they could get a lot of. Go for stores that are outside of the norm. Remember, it's all about supply and demand. So if you can find specials that are only available in your neck of the woods, those items aren't going to get hit by the price tanking nearly as bad. You can have your VAs create those lists from your ads, and your list how much you have available, like that you think would be a good buy. If you have $10,000 to spend on Black Friday, then that list should be $15,000 to $20,000 of potential items that you could purchase. And be clear about how many you want to purchase, because it is easy to kind of get caught up in the emotion. And before you go out there, make sure you're really clear on what your buying criteria is, and so that you're not buying things on that, because it's easy to get in that frenzied buying mode and to buy things that aren't going to be really the best for your business. If you are going to shop out, I recommend shops of 2 to 3 people. One person is going to park, get the carts, and stand in line. The second person is going to be loading, unloading, running the carts to the person in the front that's going to be doing the purchases. You should be the one approving the purchase. You can you can give them a list of the things that they want to buy, of how many they should buy, and you can keep that in a Google Doc, and they can say how many they've purchased as they're getting in line to check out. So everybody, if you have multiple teams of people doing this, you can make sure you don't overbuy on one item. And you can use gift cards, or like there's a Chase liquid card. It might be a little, I don't think you could get one if you didn't have one in time, but you could definitely do the gift cards. But make sure again that you have a maximum number of each of those items that you want. If you're looking, trailers are cheaper than U-Hauls because you don't have to pay for mileage, and park the trailers. If you have somebody who can park the trailer far away and bring it back in, then and you can unload, you can load those items in batches. It will speed things up a lot faster because you're going to just be able to load up right in the front and get right out of there, and you're not going to have to be driving around looking for a spot. When we would go to like the Walmarts and stuff, they have the sale that starts at 2 and starts at 5. So we would get there, at 3, and then we would get to the next one at 6 or 7. So we would be significantly after each doorbuster thing ran, because we didn't want to be there when the other crowds were there. And so, the later you can shop, the more you're going to be able to move from store to store, because you're not going to be waiting in line, which is another benefit of not doing those doorbusters. Because if you have something that's on page 16 or page 17, then, they don't go as fast. We rented Airbnb so we could process. We just rented tables from a party supply company. And, if you can have a friend or family member just help take your stickers off and put stickers off, and then you just double check everything, makes it so you can get a lot done really fast. We even had our nanny coming in and helping us when we did that. And then you can also look at selling things locally. You can look at things and selling them other places, and then using multi-channel fulfillment on eBay. We talked about, looking for things that will go well in Q1. Make sure you want to have inventory that will carry over, that will sell in January, unless you're really running your cash flow to adjust for you completely running out of stock in December. So you make sure you start to think about, what are my sales going to be like in January, and how can I start to prepare for January? Don't 35 days, 30 days, depending. It's like between 30 and 45. And then, if you want to remember that you can buy things like shipping supplies and courses at the end of the year if you are going to buy them anyway. So if you are going to buy them anyway and you wanted to reduce your tax liabilities for this year, then you could buy those items. But don't buy some bunch of stuff that you don't need to lower your tax liabilities. And you have to think about, if your business has been growing really rapidly, you could very well be in a higher tax bracket than next year. So deferring that tax into the next year might come back and be something that you regret later. So really be thinking about, how do you want your balance sheet to look at the end of the year? We talked about most of these things. And we've talked about some of these other things like the loans, making sure you have a strong plan for those several times throughout the year. And so start thinking about, what are you going to do for 2019? And these are the things that we want to be thinking about moving in. We're going to be talking about more and more. I just realized I had something in chat here I did not see.